Let's discuss with Kate Lincoln-Goldfinch, dedicated immigration attorney from Austin, with a passion for helping her clients navigate the very complex and convoluted immigration system. And that's one of the things I believe needs to change. She has a reputation for being an empathetic advocate for her clients through her work at her own law firm, Lincoln-Goldfinch Law. And Kate, great to meet you and welcome to the Salcedo Show.
Hi, good morning.
All right, Title 42. The Supreme Court has allowed it to remain in place for now, pending its review. Walk us through the legal process here. What are they trying to determine?
Well, the outcome will be whether the executive has the authority to rescind Title 42, and the practical impact of it is that we will have Title 42 in place until probably at least this summer. Mm-hmm. And as you mentioned, Title 42 is a health code. So what we're using at this point is a Health and Human Services code to enforce immigration issues, which obviously is not, a long-term solution. What I would say, and as you mentioned, I've been an immigration lawyer in Texas for 15 years. I've done work with thousands of asylum seekers. So I speak from my experience pre-Title 42. And that is that we had a functioning system for screening asylum seekers. That was called the credible fear interview, where someone could come to the border and say, I'm afraid of returning to my country, and they would be screened. And if they didn't qualify, and many don't, they would be sent back to their countries. And if they did qualify, they would be allowed to come in and prepare for their final asylum hearings. And that was not a perfect system. It needed some improvements, but it was, as you mentioned, an orderly, functioning system for processing and screening asylum seekers. What the impact of Title 42, the MPP program, has done is it has sent back pretty much all asylum seekers, very, very limited exceptions, to Mexico without being screened for asylum. And so, in my opinion, that inability to process and screen asylum seekers is what contributes to the violence and the chaos in the border, because we have migrants who would like to see whether they qualify for asylum or not, but they don't get that screening process. And it's very, dangerous for migrants who are not from Mexico to be refugees in Mexico. I worked with a nonprofit, and over the summer, we represented almost 1,000 families there, and over half of them, just under half, had been subjected to kidnapping or attempted kidnapping by the cartel. Yeah. So the cartel seize upon these groups of vulnerable migrants in Mexico. And it's, like you said, right. It's bad for everybody, this untenable situation that we have. My solution is to get back to where we used to be, where we screened asylum seekers.
I'd like to improve, and hopefully in the course of our conversation, I'd like to improve on where we used to be. But you're absolutely right. I mean, this is something you probably already know. But the number of deaths on the border because of this nonsensical administration and their open borders policies, the number of deaths on the border has skyrocketed. It's at record levels. Immigrants, illegal aliens, those who are seeking to come to asylum seekers, that the death rate is through the roof. And these are human beings. And it shows the lack of caring that lawlessness actually breeds. Let me buttress a point that you were making. The Department of Homeland Security has released statistics. These are stats between 2021, July of 2021 and July of 2022. The department had processed 1.079 million individuals seeking asylum who were stopped at the border. Now, they were screened at that time under the old system, but only 41,206 individuals actually were able to qualify for asylum. That's 4%. So you 4% of the individuals who were actually seeking to come into the United States by hook or by crook actually qualify for asylum. Don't we need to make sure that those who are legitimate asylum seekers get the access and the help that they need, while not opening the floodgates to those who don't qualify?
So I'm going to go back to something that you said, because I think this is something that's often said in the media that the chaos is because of Biden's open border policies. First of all, Biden doesn't have an open border policy. Second of all, as I mentioned, the chaos, in my opinion, having done this work for many years, is the inability for asylum seekers to get screened or get some sort of answer on their case. And so we've completely shut down the border to all asylum seekers, many of them who qualify. People from Venezuela who are fleeing political persecution, that's a solid asylum case, and those people just get rejected and sent back to Mexico. That, in my opinion, is what creates the chaos. But to respond to your question about statistics, I don't know which numbers you're looking at. What I can tell you is that there's two phases of an asylum case. One is the credible fear interview where people get screened for asylum, and a certain group of people get obviously rejected at that point. Then the next the next phase is that people go into the immigration court system where they start to prepare for their final hearing, which is a very intense process. There's a prosecutor, there's a judge, there's evidence, testimony, cross-examination, et cetera. It's a very involved process. But the immigration court system is so overloaded because I would argue this is another conversation we can dive into if you want, because more people have been thrown into the system than should have been, that it takes, in many cases, up to a decade for an asylum seeker to work themselves through the court system. So I don't actually think we can have clean and accurate data about, okay, if we take a group of, 100,000 asylum seekers who arrived at the border maybe in 2012, if we follow them all the way through the process in the court system, right, what would the end result be? I'm certain it's higher than 4%, but I don't think we actually have clean data like that. So it's real easy to pull statistics and grab numbers, but it's not as low as 4%. I can tell you that.
Well, again, I'm only going off of what the Department of Homeland Security published. And again, I'm willing to believe that this government is so incompetent and isn't very truthful. I could go right there and say that they're lying through their teeth about this data. But that's where we got the information from. And again, you and I both know the overwhelming number of individuals who seek asylum do not qualify under our asylum laws, which I believe need to be reformed as well. Folks, we're talking to Kate Lincoln-Goldfinch. She's a long-standing attorney, an immigration attorney in Austin, Texas. So you stated that you don't think that Joe Biden has an open border policy. So let's delve into that, because whether you believed that the Donald Trump approach of the Remain in Mexico policy was good or bad, it did help us weed out individuals who were looking to abuse the asylum laws, which, again, poorly written. A 5-year-old could have written a better asylum law than we have on the books, which would determine those who are basically, we need one that determines who are actually eligible for asylum and who are those who just want to come to America because their countries of origin stink. There's a legitimate asylum seeking predicate that I think we need to lay down, and I think this goes to the broader discussion maybe you were alluding to. We need to reform a legal immigration system to where we get the people in who want to lawfully immigrate to the United States, and we need to keep those who just seek to come in willy-nilly out. How do we do that?
Well, we're talking about two different things here. Asylum is just a fraction of overall immigration, and the laws of asylum have been in place since World War II, right? And our failure to protect Jewish refugees in the Holocaust, coming out of that war, we created a body of asylum law. It was codified in 1980, and it's been built out by a body of case law. Someone qualified because they've been persecuted on account of their race, religion, nationality, political opinion, membership in a particular social group. What does that mean? Membership in a particular social group. So it's actually a quite complex, very robust body of law that is in place and has been thought about by many, judges and legal scholars. And so when we use the system as it was meant to work, pre-MPP, pre-Title 42, it functions quite well, determining
that's an
whether
important point.
people qualify or not.
What you just said is an important point, because and this is the case in so many parts of the country right now, in so many elements of government, they take established law and they use it for their political purposes, because right now, under various administrations, the case law and everything that you just articulated has been whittled down to, hey, you show up to the border and you say the magic A word and you're in. And that's been the practical application for those who have a political agenda. And I think that we got to get back to what you're talking about: methodical, lawful, established law that makes sure that these people get a proper hearing. Am I wrong for wanting that?
What I would say is that, well, first of all, coming to the border and saying the A word, it's never been like that. Well, I shouldn't say never. For the last 20 years, starting in 1996, we implemented the credible fear interview process, which was the screening mechanism. And like I said, that created a whole host of other issues because people are temporarily detained as they go through that process. And so there are problems associated with the credible fear interview process. But having that orderly screening mechanism to determine maybe someone will qualify, and if they do, they get in and they prepare for their final hearing, and that's when we really assess and dive into their case. And that we do need. Of course we need that. This is the United States of America. People from all over the globe want to come here, and they're unsafe or they're unhappy or whatever in their country. And so we can't just grant asylum willy-nilly, of course. So let's just say we need to screen people. Title 42 MPP reject everyone. And so it creates this chaos, this backlog. We've got, at this point, 2 years of asylum seekers, many legitimate, who haven't even been given the opportunity to be screened. But I would back up a little bit here and say, we're talking about asylum at the southern border. The solution, in my mind, is simple. Let's get back to screening people. But issue number 2, big picture issue, is that we have an immigration need in the United States of America. We are an aging population, and we have a strong need for immigrant labor all along the skill spectrum: low, medium, high skilled. Baby boomers are aging. We need workers in our economy. But Congress has failed to pass immigration reform that actually recognizes the needs of our economy. So we have this situation where we have jobs. We have a need, and yet we don't have a way for people who just want to come here and work and support our economy to do that legally. So big picture, let's start with getting honest about the needs of our economy, pass immigration reform that takes care of us, the United States of America, and acknowledges that we need immigrants, because that's the truth. We got to do that.
That is a fair point, and I've been saying for years that we have a legal immigration problem because we haven't had a legal immigration reform that recognizes the economic needs of the United States, not to mention the population that you recognized, the population demographic changes. We don't have one that does that because there's not been serious reform, because we haven't had serious lawmakers, I would argue, for a half century in Washington, D.C. Then you've got the illegal immigration problem. You've got 2 separate problems with 2 different solutions. Because Congress fails to act on legal immigration, we have this illegal immigration problem, which leads to, as I made allusion to at the top, we've got roughly 6 million people that I would classify as entering into this country illegally, and this promise to appear, and they just disappear and are never heard from again. That's a lawless process in my view. Plus, there's 1 million individuals who got into our country, Kate, who we don't even know who they are. Because the Border Patrol had all of this placed on their shoulders. 1 million gotaways have been chronicled, and many of us rationalize it's a lot more. That national security risk is unacceptable in my mind. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, I think obviously we need secure borders, and in my experience, we have very secure borders. We have since about 2005. Bush was the president, 9/11 had happened, Michael Chertoff was DHS secretary, came down to the border. They did a big push on border security, and DHS has a law enforcement budget that is like multi-X factor larger than all of the other law enforcement federal budgets combined. We have a really tight border. What Title 42 and MPP does, when we tell asylum seekers there's no way you can be screened if they get caught crossing, they just get sent right back across the border. What I can tell you is, let's say you have a family from Venezuela. They fled danger or persecution from anywhere in the country. They come, they get rejected at the border, they're in Mexico, they're facing danger for their kids and themselves. They're going to come and try it again tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow until we give them a chance and say, tell us your story. Actually, you don't qualify for asylum. You need to be deported back to your country. Once they learn that they've been screened and they don't qualify, they're going to make alternate plans. But otherwise, they keep trying, and that does something called recidivism. It increases the rates of apprehensions at the border, and for people who are scared of the border, it gets their attention. You know, all of this rhetoric about immigrants are dangerous and bad. Those numbers look scary because they're inflated because of recidivism, because we don't have systematic, orderly policies at the border, and because we don't have an immigration system that actually recognizes the needs of our economy. We start there. We start with those two things that I'm talking about: immigration reform, orderly processing of asylum seekers at the border. I'm telling you, we're going to see a lot of calming down about this stuff.
Well, you say we had a tight border, but can we credibly say that with 1 million people who have gotten across that border undetected? Can we credibly say we have a tight border with over 1 million people gaining access to the United States over the last year?
There's actually no way to really gauge that data. That is a number that somebody is guessing. I don't know the number. You don't know the number. If people are getting in and absconding, what I can tell you is that I consult with immigrants, and there are back in the day, let's say, there used to be what we call porous borders. There was circular migration. People from Mexico, Central America would come. They'd work for a little while. They'd go home to their family for Christmas. They'd come back and they'd work. They'd pass through the border. It was circular. That era is over. Yeah. People who are in the U.S. and they're undocumented, they don't go back home because they know they're not going to get back in. And people don't come in and just don't get apprehended. The borders are really quite secure. And so I think it's really easy to say 1 million people, are coming in, but that's a made-up number.
Well,
and so I think this kind of language is what is dangerous, because we get so riled up and frightened about border security. And this is something that's been repeated through U.S. history. It used to be Irish Catholics. It used to be Germans. It used to be Italians. It used to be Jews. It used to be Chinese people. Now it's southern border. And that is the rhetoric and the discussion that leads to Congress's inaction, because Republican lawmakers are afraid to pass immigration legislation because their base won't vote for them. So frankly,
wait a minute. There is no race or national ethnicity that is tacked onto the word illegal. And again, where I'm getting my information from is from the border agents who are actually on the front line. Chris Cabrera, other union representatives who have come on this program and actually published data that taught that DHS is publishing what they call known gotaways. So it's not some pie in the sky number. There is if you don't want to attach over 1 million to it, there's an inordinate amount, hundreds of thousands of individuals coming across the border that have not, quote unquote, checked in, that we don't know. We have no idea who they are. And it's our own federal government that's acknowledging, this is happening. And again, I would rationalize it as because it's poor policy. What I'm saying is that for me as an American, that is unacceptable. That to accommodate those who are legitimately asylum seekers, it is unacceptable to have a system where over 1 million people can gain access to our nation without telling us who they are and why they are here. And I'm just wondering, as an immigration lawyer who wants to help legitimate asylum seekers, is that someplace where you and I can meet in the middle to where, we've got to agree that those who are not authorized to be in the United States should not be in the United States?
So what I would say, here's where we can agree.
Okay.
We can agree that we need an immigration system that reflects the needs of the economy so that people want to come here and work will do so, and will know who they are, will know where they are. If you're talking about the undocumented population in the United States, what happened was in 1986 we passed amnesty under Reagan. And the idea at that point was we'll legalize everybody who's here who's undocumented. At that point it was about 4 million people. Right. And we'll change the laws so that people who want to come here can do so legally. But that second step never happened.
Never happened. Exactly.
Right. So we have at this point an undocumented population. It would be absolutely awful for our economy and our nation if we attempted to deport the undocumented population, right?
I'm not talking about the illegal aliens who are already here. I'm talking about stopping illegal immigration at the southern border. What I'm saying is that illegal immigration is wrong. Illegal immigration is immoral, and illegal immigration is bad for any nation that's forced to endure it by its political class. And if we can start by saying that no American supports illegal immigration, I think we can branch off from there and come up with orderly processes that benefit the United States and those who want to come here to be Americans. No?
Yeah, I think we agree on a lot of these points. I think where we disagree is on who we're pointing the finger at here. Because for me, I'm looking at Congress saying, guys, ladies, get it together.
Damn right.
Pass a law
You're right.
that protects us. And that will solve this problem.
Right on target. You know, this isn't the foreign nationals' problem. Foreign nationals who want to come to America, I don't blame you. America's great. I love my country. I don't blame you for wanting to come here. It is up to the Congress, our so-called leaders, who have sat on their collective rear ends and not done anything on this issue that is impacting American lives negatively, impacting immigrant lives negatively, and, frankly, illegal alien lives negatively. And it's their indifference and their callousness and their laziness that is really harming us all. Kate, I got to cut the conversation there. Kate Lincoln-Goldfinch, everybody. She is a dedicated immigration attorney from Austin, Texas. Happy New Year to you, lady, and I appreciated the debate and the conversation.
Yeah, you bet. Have a good day. Thanks.